With Game 4 between the Celtics and the Heat taking place on Monday, who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
I think Boston's coming out aggressive. I think Boston is going to completely change the dynamic of what it is that they were about in the first couple of games. I think they are going to come out and attack the basket. I think they are going to make sure that they get Jason and Jalen in rhythms early. I know that Ime Udoka is going to be absolutely critical of this team and making sure that they limit their turnovers and maximizing on Miami's. Let's be frank, Jimmy is hurt. You have to take advantage and put him in a position to where he has to defend aggressively. Now, whether or not you put switches to where he has to guard a big and put him in the post, get him in foul trouble, or just make life a living hell for him on the defensive side and really get up on him so that he is forced to put pressure on that knee, um, is yet to be seen. I just definitely think that this series is going to be competitive. It's going to continue to be aggressive. It's going to continue to be chippy. Hopefully, Robert Williams will be able to come back and play in this game as well, because we all know that he is one of the main pieces and compartments on this defensive unit that is the Boston Celtics. And I think that they are going to just have to come at this game in a completely different light. We know that Miami is a gritty team in and of itself. We know that Jimmy Butler is one of those players that just gets it done on both sides of the ball, and I think that that's just going to have to transcend to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown again. I know that we've been kind of preaching it like a broken record here, but when those two are on, it is pretty hard to stop them, and it has shown in this postseason that when they play together and play efficient, it is very hard to put a stop to the two of them. Jalen did the best that he could, and he dropped 40, and he had a masterful game. But we all know that for them to be successful, they're gonna have to have Jason play a lot better. And again, as I said, with this game coming down to a 6 point or yeah, a 6 point game, and Jason have the game that he did, it just kind of speaks volume that, when he's on, it is quite scary. So we will have to see what happens as this series goes. But I'm going to definitely say that Boston comes back. I don't see them losing two in a row on their home court. And I definitely see them making adjustments because Ime Udoka, a coach of the year candidate, a first time head coach, showed that he can get the best out of this young group. And I think that he has them prepared to come out aggressive in that game four matchup against the Heat coming up.
Kevin, I'm with you 100% on this one. I've got the Celtics as well. And I think it's really the point that you outlined with Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum had 10 points in game 3. I think he could do better. The entire team, pretty much the entire Boston area knows that he could do better. And I expect that that's what's going to go down in game 4. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out there and tries to score 30, 35 points just because of that game 3 performance. So, all in all, I definitely have Boston winning this one. And, it's going to be like this. So, when I look at the game 3 specifically from Boston, I mean, Jaylen Brown was really essentially the guy that was keeping them in it because, like I said, Jason Tatum was not really consistent from the field. He had one of his worst player performances in his relatively young NBA career in Game 3. But even though that the Celtics were down by and large throughout most of the game, if not the entire game, in Game 3, they definitely showed me some resilience to be able to stay in it to make it a closer game at the end. They just weren't able to get a large run to put them ahead by the end of Game 3. And I think a large part had to do with just Jason just knocking down shots. I think going into game 4, I think the main thing that they're going to have to make adjustments to is trying to be able to slow down Bam Adebayo. I mean, Bam Adebayo was an absolute monster in game 3, and that was despite the fact that Jimmy Butler did not play the entire second half because of a lingering knee issue that he sustained. And I imagine that Jimmy Butler's going to be playing in game 4. Now, to what extent that he's going to play, I have no idea. Could he be on a minutes restriction? Potentially. We'll just kind of have to see how it plays out, the way that Eric Spoelstra utilizes him in the lineup. But overall, I think the one thing that if I'm Boston, I focus on Jimmy Butler. I focus on him and make sure that I get the ball out of his hands and force it to guys like Max Strus, PJ Tucker, and possibly Tyler Hero. Because I'd rather have those guys go out there and perform than Jimmy. Because Jimmy's already shown when he's on, he is a nightmare to deal with because he's a great mid-range shooter. He has the ability to knock down occasionally a three-point shot. It's not a focal point of his game, but knocking down mid-range shots, driving into the lane, getting fouls, getting to the free throw line, that's what Jimmy lives off of. And if Boston can find a way to be able to slow him down or contain him and force the ball into some of the role players that Miami has in their roster, like I just outlined, I think that Boston could be able to work with that and be able to slow down Miami pretty significantly going into game four. And then when it comes to the offensive side for Boston, I think if they get some sort of similar production from Jaylen Brown, I think if they get decent production from Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, and even Al Horford, I think it sets them up in a great situation for game four. It would be interesting to see how Marcus Smart responds. He's been dealing with a couple injury issues of his own the last couple games, and we don't know what his health status and how much is going to be affected going into game four is going to be. But I think this is a game where Jason's just going to absolutely take over. I think Jalen's going to be effective once again. I don't think he's going to drop 40 points like he did in game three. And I think as long as they get the decent production from Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and they're able to lock up Jimmy on the other side of the ball, I think it does them wonders. And I do believe that when it's all said and done, when Game 5 takes place in Miami, it will be 2-2 apiece because I think Boston's going to win this one. I'm going to say Boston wins this one by about 10 points. I think this is going to be a score where it's going to be like 115 to 105. It would surprise me if Boston gets off to a really good start because for some odd reason, both of these teams like to just absolutely blow the other team out in the first half, where it's like completely insane. These are the top two teams in the Eastern Conference. You have these wildly different outcomes that take place in the first half, with one team just absolutely beating the brakes off of the other team. That could happen in Game 4 once again, like it has in the first couple games of this series. But I think when it's all said and done, Boston ties up the series when this series goes back to Miami for Game 5. That's just how I see it.